Hi everyone, so my name is Mathilde, and my team and I will be presenting the Columbine shooting. So I'll be discussing the overview and story of the case, as well as the background and story of the perpetrators. Noemi will then talk about the type of crime, the risk factors, and the psychological and psychiatric conditions. Finally, Lucas will be talking about organized and disorganized model of crime, as well as fitness to stand trial and fitness to stand crime. In brief, the Columbine High School Massacre is a school shooting and attempted bombing of the Columbine High School in Colorado. The massacre occurred on April 20th, 1999. The perpetrators broke into the school and started shooting. They attempted to bomb the school with homemade bombs and hid 2 bombs in the cafeteria as well as 2 others nearby. In total, 12 students and 1 teacher died during the massacre, and 24 people were injured during a gunshot exchange between the police and the perpetrators. The culprits of the crime are Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. They were both rejected from their peers and victims of bullying. They were also part of a school club named Trenchcoat Mafia, who was a club for social outcasts. They worked at Blackjack Pizza after school. Eric was more of an aggressive psychopath with lack of empathy towards others, whereas Dylan sought revenge and was clinically depressed as well as he had low self-esteem. I'll now be talking about the storyline. So both guys had journals and videos planning the attack. They also built weapons together like bombs and guns. They also had an incident and investigation done by the FBI and they were recognized to be misfits. And after shooting the school, they both committed suicide in the library.
For the type of crime, the Columbine High School massacre falls under the category of mass murder. A total of 5 victims were killed and another 24 were injured badly. 21 of the 24 who were injured by gunfire. This crime took place in the same location, which is the Columbine High School, Colorado, and everything happened between 11:19 a.m. until 12:08 p.m., meaning it took less than an hour for the killers to complete their killings. And mass murder means that there are 3 or more victims, no cooling off period between each killing, and it all happens at the same location. The Columbine High School massacre checks all the boxes for it to fall under the category. To be more exact, it's a school shooting with the attempt of arson, bombing, and the suicide of the perpetrator, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. For the risk factors, both of the boys fall under the historical and dispositional models of risk factor, meaning their past experience and their personality characteristics are the biggest factors. For Eric Harris, since his father was in the military, his family had to move around a lot, exactly 4 times. That caused a lot of problems for Harris since he always had to start from scratch and he would lose a lot of friends. In a tape that he recorded, Harris states that he blames his father for his loneliness and his difficulties to feel attached to people. Furthermore, another big historical factor is that Harris experienced a heartbreak during his senior year. The girl that he had asked to prom lost interest in him and Harris took it badly. He even faked a suicide to scare her. On top of that, concerning the dispositional risk factor, Harris' friends said that he was very likable and very charming, but towards the end of the year, he started isolating himself and he would threaten people with bombs. He always he also bragged that he was very good at lying and make people believe anything. For Dylan Klebold, he had a very normal religious family and a seemingly normal life. The only problem he had when he was young was a pyloric stenosis diagnosis, meaning that he had intestinal problems. When he was older, he was transferred to a school for gifted children, and his parents said that it was very difficult for him to adapt and it impacted his life greatly. That change in his life probably plays a big role in his future action because it isolated him. Concerning his dispositional risk factor, people said that he was extremely shy. He was very fidgety with new people and he would rarely open up to anyone. In the fall, prior to the Columbine school shooting after being arrested for stealing a van, Eric Harris was diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder, which is also known as OCD. However, this was later contradicted by Dwayne Fuselier, the FBI's lead Columbine detective and a clinical psychologist who later diagnosed Eric Harris with a psychopathy. FBI profiler believed Dylan Klebold's depression was one of the main factors that contributed to the combined massacre. However, these labels don't adequately explain the psychological state of both shooter or take into account the environmental influences that deeply affected both Eric and Dylan. Eric certainly has many of the characteristics of a psychopath, from his lack of empathy and remorse and his ability to manipulate and deceive other people. But there were other pieces that didn't fit the psychopathic label, such as his respect of authority, not getting into trouble at school, the way he loved and took care of his dog, and his ability to provide emotional support to others he considered his friends. Dylan's depression, his identity issues surrounding his sexual orientation, and his nerd status caused him to hate himself and feel fearful and anxious. Eric and Dylan each fulfilled a desperate need in the other. For Eric, Dylan agreed and confirmed Eric's view that he was abused and mistreated, and Dylan was also willing to partner with him in his plan for revenge. Eric was also described as being extremely narcissistic, as he often wrote in his journal about feeling like a god, that he was superior in of the law. He also talked about his sadistic fantasy, which involved raping girls he knew, torturing people, and mutilating and killing someone and enjoying it. Bonanno and Levinson in 2014 claimed that both boys had serious issues and damaged personal identity and self-worth, and a school massacre was their way of asserting their masculinity, since much of Western culture associated violence with masculinity. Levin and, Levin and Matsfis introduced a five-stage sequential model that incorporated a number of other criminal theories to explain why a student would commit such a terrible act. The first three stages build upon each other and involve first chronic strain, secondly uncontrolled strain, which is chronic strain that remained unchecked because of a lack of social support, and in the third stage, acute strain, which involves some loss that is perceived as catastrophic. The environment of bullying, rejection, and constant torment that both boys experienced created these kinds of strains that build upon each other and ultimately ended with the fourth stage, which is planning, and the final stage, which is the massacre.
For the organized disorganized model of crime, the Columbine shooting massacre was in fact very organized. Eric Harris had made a lot of plans regarding the shooting, and a lot of this evidence was found in his diary. So, for example, he had written about detailed plans of the shooting even a year before it happened. So, this was not something that was just done in the moment. It was something that he was really thinking of and made a lot of plans about beforehand. And he also wrote about burning down the school and wanting to put bombs and explosions. In addition, he included maps of the school where he indicated areas where the most people are, the most crowded areas. So for the shooting, he can kill the most people he could. And he also included the places you can hide in the school. He also had many diary entries about the Nazis and Hitler, which can indicate why the date of April 20th, 1999 was chosen. And this is because it's the 110th anniversary of Hitler's birth. And the guns that were used in the shooting were purchased over time, and they weren't just bought right before. So it just shows that how it was planned for a while, and they were already choosing what guns they were going to use. And despite Dylan and Eric not meeting all the characteristics of organized murders, such as being sexually or socially competent, the Columbine Massacre was in fact completely planned out in advance. Okay, so for the fitness to stand trial, insanity, automatism, or mental disorder, this can be applied to this situation while knowing the fact that Eric and Dylan committed suicide by shooting themselves in the library right after they shot up the school, as mentioned before in this presentation. But in a situation where they would still be alive, Eric and Dylan would not be unfit to stand trial. This is because this was all planned in advance, and they had full intentions to do what they did. For example, like I mentioned before, they had all the diary entries, just everything they wrote down. They even made videos about this, and just their behavior. They were always rejected from people in their school. They hated the popular people, and they just felt like they couldn't fit in at all. So that's really what pushed them to do this, just because they just wanted revenge in a way. And like I said, they completely knew what they were doing, and they were aware of the consequences they would face based off the fact that they did kill themselves right after they did what they did. And the fact that they were planning this for a full year and never seemed to give up their idea shows that it was done with no hesitation.